Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker, the future is feeling.
Time is winding down in 2023, and today the drivers of the Precision Racing League head into the unknown, as do we in the broadcast booth. Welcome to Circuit de Ledenon for the very first time in Precision Racing League history. Up first, it's the GT3 Fix Series, and as ever, it's our Junior Kanky party back alongside Joey Tebben to walk you through all of the action. Joey, we've got 3 rounds left to go, including our races here tonight. But of course, the 1 week that I decided to miss, they decided to go bonkers back at Interlagos.
They did go absolutely bonkers just 1 week ago. An absolutely fantastic race in the GT3 Sprint Series. More contact than you've seen all season, but both cars still managed to finish. That's one to go back in the tape dock and go look at the last week's finish after tonight's over. But this week, the focus is all on Ledenon. You saw the preview just in the intro there. With that B-roll alone, it doesn't even look like a real track. It's ridiculous levels of elevation change. It's a very local track that only hosts French club racing nowadays. So every single driver in the field has been learning this track as the day's gone on.
Yeah, I've got the track map up next to me, and I'm just trying to remember some of these corner names as we get ready to go. But after this, maybe a bit more familiar in terms of Fuji, Watkins Glen, and boy, what a place to close the season out, Joey. And of course, the other thing to remember is 9 rounds of the championship can be dropped from the equation. That is 1 a week. Drivers are allowed to either A, miss to go and do things in the real world, or B, have a slightly disappointing event. That cannot be Watkins Glen, and there's always drama sometimes up through the S's, especially with the strength in numbers we sometimes see with these GT3s.
Hopefully we don't have a thing like we had a couple of weeks ago where there's just one car that crashes at the S's at Watkins Glen and everybody else piles in. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but it is Watkins Glen. tied with Road America as the best racetrack in the U.S. I still can't decide which one's better, but it's going to be a great place to end the season, ironically after it opened the season last season, and I hope we just have a championship fight still going by then.
You're wrong. The best track in all of North America is actually the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, but besides the point, the championship still looking quite close despite the fact that after winning last week and grabbing what was his third win of the season, Ross Sortino is still only 10 points off the back of Jeff Carollo. It goes to show the importance of the penalty points and staying your way out of trouble. 15 penalty points have been handed down to Sortino so far, but 3 races left to go. It's still anyone's game up in towards, realistically, the top 3 or 4.
Yeah, Sortino is the big one to watch there in third. He's 10 points behind Carollo. He has 2 more wins than Carollo, though, and he's done a fantastic job of coming back from 2 bad races. Carollo's already had a bad race. He had a DNF in round 4. He can't drop that. Eric Kulaga in the middle of those 2. No bad weeks so far. He's been consistent. Hasn't been consistently on the podium, but he's been consistently in the top 10 and getting points, and that might be how he wins his championship. I think it's going to come down to those 3 unless we get an absolute surprise from anybody else in these final 3 weeks.
Plenty of drivers still have their own little battles to focus on. Look at Waldo Walden, 1 point clear of Buck Hamilton, who's only 2 points clear of Dale Peterson. But when you take a look at the team championship, it is still a bit of a breakaway here as the Vulture Motorsports North crew are now a good 77 points clear of SGE Esports. B&O Racing then a further 7 odd points further back with the Seabow Racing team's number 1 machine, of course, in 4th. That was something that, of course, Joey, was something that was an interesting talking point to us coming into the season. Seabow Racing team expanding beyond just the Sprint Series to the Fixed Series as well.
But they didn't expand far enough. That was the problem. They only have 2 cars on that CRT1 team. And when Luis Grullon has run into trouble like he has a couple times this season, when Artie Mercedes has run into trouble, they've had nobody to fall back on, and that's why they're not really in contention for this team's championship anymore. While you've got 3 teams up top that have 3 drivers on their squad. When one driver falls off, they can make up for it. So we're gonna have a championship battle between those 3 because there is strength in numbers.
And that is so important, especially going to some of the tight and twisty tracks like we go to over the course of the season, and Circuit Ledenon is no exception with the drivers out there for qualifying. Let's take the time to thank those that make all of this possible, starting with Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ESR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision 5 coupon code. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. And Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. As ever, qualifying expected to be relatively important, Joey, given the tight and twisty confines of Circuit Ledenon. At the very top, though, of the qualifying standings, it is Jeff Carollo, the 119.455, that currently sits on top, but let's be real, it's anyone's game here, with the margin still pretty close in this qualifying session.
I hope you're all enjoying learning the mysteries of Ledenon as we take a look on the countryside on the outside. This place is in the middle of nowhere. The race control tower looks a little bit like an air traffic control tower. You might need some help from that over the course of the day. But Ross Sortino coming out of the pits now, just trying to stay out of the way, trying to stay over on the side of the track, letting people get through because it's very tight and twisty corners. There's not a lot of runoff. It's very easy to throw it off into the gravel on blind corners like you just saw one of the Porsches do there. There's still a little bit of learning Ross Sortino's going to try and do here with 4 more minutes on the clock.
And I think it's important just to watch some of what the drivers are having to do to avoid impeding one another in the qualifying session. Now Sortino will build himself up and dive down the hill. It is Jeff Carollo, though, in the Porsche that is currently on provisional pole position with a 1:19.455. He runs his way to the line. Hasn't actually been on pole position so far this season, and with no improvement on that attempt, will have at most 3 more tries to find a little bit more speed, and what is, I think, a quite important qualifying session for his championship hopes.
And I actually got a message from one of Jeff's sort of teammates. They're separated in the series. Aero Urexoi, the champion of this series last season, now up in the Sprint Series, messaged me. He said, Carolo's got this in the bag. Carolo's going to win this. And right now, Aero's being proven right. He is at the top of the timing sheet, but only by 43 thousandths of a second. That is a very close margin, and that is a very strong driver who's on the hottest streak of anybody right behind him. But there's still basically anybody in the field who can continue to pick up speed here. It's such low separation between first all the way down to 14th, only a second, that if you nail one lap, you might be able to put it on pole here. You get an absolute shocker from basically anybody in the field.
Haven't really seen too many improvements in times, even though it's what you'd class as relatively optimal conditions for the drivers to be finding some improvement as the cloud cover stays on it. It's the wind that potentially will just be playing a bit of a factor. It's Jared Keane in the SRT Esports Porsche that's setting up for what will be his penultimate attempt in the qualifying session. Here's David Morse in the Ferrari 296. It took me a second to recognize it over the crest. It does look quite Lamborghini-esque from the front, I must admit.
It looks McLaren-esque.
That too as well.
So McLaren-y.
It's clearly stealing from other car manufacturers. Hashtag don't sue me, Ferrari.
Yeah, it just tricks us every single time. There's polygons on the SRT livery as well. It's like they're trying to trick us here. I did do some French studying, by the way, over the last 5 minutes. Good weather. Beau temps. So we're in some beau temps right now.
C'est bon.
C'est bon.
Parlez-vous un petit français?
Je suis très délicieux.
Ah, yes. Je comprends.
No.
Should we do this entire broadcast in French? No?
Bon victoire.
I mean, it would be very bad because we just repeat the same phrases over and over again as Google Translate spat it into our ears. But nevertheless, as we watch Dale Peterson, who's just jumped his way up into 5th, it's clear that there is some improvement out on track. Ross Sortino again has to find 43 thousandths of a second. That is all he is looking for. Although Walden, question has been, where's Waldo over the course of the season? He's been quite good in qualifying here in this final campaign in 2023.
Yeah, this has been Waldo's best season ever, both on the oval side and in the road side. He's really taken to this series this season, almost put it on pole at the Hungaroring a couple of weeks ago, has been in the fight for podiums and on the front row in qualifying. So he's gonna be very happy after this. Even if he doesn't get the championship, even if he doesn't get SGE Esports, the team's championship, it's still been a very fruitful season for Waldo, and I think we'll see him back next season to maybe have an even better season and maybe actually fight for the championship with all his experience.
That's the thing, right? You just build in a championship like this, especially with the fixed setups. It's all about just understanding how the cars race, what you need to do to find the most speed. Tyler Gross, someone who joined us, of course, midway through the campaign.
Car change
As well, and I was just looking at the time. That was almost a full second off of his fastest lap time. So again, this is the thing about the fixed setup series, Joey. You don't get to put in a specific amount of fuel. You're always trying to burn things off and run your way to the end. And now Tyler Groff will get one more opportunity, and that is it, as can be said for Ross Sortino.
Yeah, Ross, a few more corners to go. Has been absolutely rapid this season. Actually got his first pole last week. I was shocked by that. I could have sworn he'd been on pole multiple times, but it was his first pole last week at Interlagos. Jared deploy up over the top of the hill. It's a blind crest. You barely even know where the start-finish line is because right after you cross over it, it's a blind turn 1. Hopefully he's done enough learning because his qualifying session's over. It's over for Carolo too, and he's just got to sit and wait for a couple more minutes until everybody crosses the line.
And you can just see how much undulation there is through the entire facility as Artie Mercedes does not find some improvement. It's only 0.2 the margin, but so important in these qualifying sessions to find everything. Just look at that climb, though, up to the final corner. Matthew Saint-Aubin heads off down towards the pit lane. Tyler Groff is going to do so as well in the Porsche after switching over from the BMW. But Dale Peterson is going to make his way towards the checkered flag, and again, he's got a 1:19.923 as his personal benchmark. We'll find about 19 thousandths of a second. It's not enough to jump Buck Hamilton to 4th.
That's heartbreaking. Just needed 7 more thousandths there. But that was a good shot through the final corner, because that is an absolutely ridiculous amount of elevation change. We talk about the start-finish straight at Road America, how steep that is. You're coming over the crest onto the start-finish line. That looked like a ramp. That looked like Coda Turn 1 if there's a steep drop underneath it. This place is ridiculous. I don't know what kind of land they built this on, but clearly about half of it is sunk into the ground.
I'm trying to figure out what the actual amount of elevation change actually is around the 13 odd corners. It's not necessarily the widest track in the world either, is one thing that I just noted. So it is going to be quite interesting, Joey, as we get ready for the 2x2 formation to see how they get underway at the start.
And that's going to be a really hard thing. A rolling start, double file at this track. When it is so tight, you're going to have a hard time being on the outside into turn 1. You're going to have a hard time being side by side through the entirety of this place.
Well, it's going to be a shortened formation lap for the drivers as they get ready to run their way down to the start of round 8 in this 2023 season 4 of the Precision Racing League GT3 Fix Series. But for the first time this campaign, it's Carollo on top in qualifying with a 1:19.455. He'll lead us to the green alongside Ross Sortino in a very green Ferrari, 43 thousandths off the pace. Then 3 tenths further back to Tyler Graf in the Porsche for Nizumi Graphics LC with Buck Hamilton alongside Dale Peterson and Jason Finch alongside on row number 3. 7th for Felix Felice, it's 8th for Waldo Walden with 9th and 10th seeing Jim Felice and Jared Keane. Artie Mercedes and Ian Cabana, 11th and 12th positions with hopefully not unlucky 13th for Sully Saad. It'll be Douglas Corey alongside with Eric Hulaga and then Steven Martinez sharing the 8th row of the grid. Dino Vella and Luis Grullon sharing the 9th row of the grid. It's a relatively small field, but the top 20 split by just about 1.5 seconds with the SRT Motorsports white pair of David Morse and Jared Deploy 19th and 20th. A fellow SRT driver, this time in a Porsche though, for Christopher Ryans in 21st. Matthew Saint-Aubin in 22nd with Nicholas Johnson, and then Kevin Berquist 23rd and 24th. 2 more drivers with times on the board. That's Michael Kulaga and then Robert Jeffrey. Sean Mulholland will line up at the very back of this 27 car field as they get ready to go racing for the 8th time this season. We're going into the unknown. Joey, I'm sure you've got some weird, wild, mysterious facts for us right now.
Weird, wild, and mysterious facts. I don't have many, but it's a short pace lap. I believe the corner we're coming into on the screen right now, that's going to be Servi, and then you've got a little tight and twisty section of corners until you get to the final corner, Corvette. Not to be confused with Corvette, but I'm sure that's gonna come up many times. It's almost like Olton Park. I'd compare that final corner to a reverse Olton Park, where you're coming through a corner that seems tighter than you'd expect, then you're climbing up the hill into a very fast turn 1. So if there's any Olton Park heads in the field right now, I hope they're able to use that experience.
As the field rolls away, let's very quickly take a look at the, few drivers that we've got for the webcam feeds here today. It's Carollo alongside with Kulaga on the top, and then Ian Cabana and Matthew Saint-Aubin down below them. And of course, you can ignore the bus driver Vincent Trepanier getting ready to go racing. Oh, we're into the final corner. Joey, what are you feeling? What are your expectations of this one?
Sortino's been very strong in race pace. Look out for him in the start. Maybe pounce early.
So it's the points leader, Jeff Carollo, that for the first time this season will rise us up towards the green flag here at Circuit Ledenon. Green flag in the air, and instantly Tyler Graf trying to take advantage, and Ross Sortino not running him any room, but the Porsche squeaks on through as we get onto the brakes for the very first time. Sortino now tries to cut back underneath as a tidy start for all 25 of the machines sees them rolling now through the undulation at Circuit Ledenon. But now, down the hill, it's where Sortino's got to try and now get to grips with the task at hand. Sliding in front of Tyler Graf, sliding to the inside of the track.
That's what I get for saying anything. Ross Sortino spins on the opening lap. I think he did get into the Armco, and that's going to be disastrous for his championship chances. Luckily for him, his championship rivals not really around other than Jeff Carollo up in the lead of this race. That's going to be a beautiful situation for Carollo, and it's going to be heartbreak for Sortino. He's got a whole 35 minutes to come back from that now. 35
minutes, an expected pit stop between 15 and 10 minutes left to go on the clock, and now we'll see if it's going to be a 2-car breakaway at the front, as already Buck Hamilton is losing out to the top 2 as Tyler Graf takes advantage of a very nice jump on the start to try and attack for the race lead. But here we go, down in towards the final corner and rising back up towards the line. This time it's Buck Hamilton that will loop it around. I think the field's going to be able to scatter and make their way around him, but to the line with 7-10 splitting the top two, and then 2.5 seconds further back, Jeff Carollo being hunted down by Tyler Graff.
And that was Jared Keane who took a bite out of Buck Hamilton through the final corner. He's got damage as well. I think he's had to bring it down pit lane, or at least he's going to be thinking about it. Jim Feliz has also looped it around at the back of the field. People are having a ton of trouble with this track. It's new for everybody. They had a whole practice session to figure it out, but cold tires and huge elevation changes all add up to easy mistakes. Here's what happened to Ross Sortino on lap 1. Those tires had only been heated up for about 2 corners, and as he crested over the top of the hill, the weight transferred, the elevation changed, and he was meeting some very close arm cover.
And similarly, it was just, again, the elevation, and indeed it was Jared Keane, you're right, in that Porsche that made significant contact, and so you'd have to assume that was 2 for the price of 1 at the final corner in terms of eating cars. What are we going to see with one of the Seabow Racing contingent up the inside of a Vulture Motorsports Ferrari? And it's the 18 of Douglas Corey that spins himself around.
Douglas kind of making a new track there, leaning on, I believe that was Steven Martinez in the Vulture Motorsports Ferrari. Did not work out for him, but these are teething issues. It's a new track for everybody. It's going to happen, and you're going to be rewarded in 32 minutes time if you can keep it on the track and keep it consistent. Jeff Carollo's done exactly that in the opening laps. He's pulled almost a second over Tyler Graff now. He's got to think about the full race distance, though. Make sure he doesn't make any mistakes. Make sure he's just running the track as it is. Because if he can just hold Tyler Graff behind, he's going to have a very hard time passing him anywhere.
And I got to ask, what do you think right now is going through the mind of Jeff Carollo after seeing Sortino with the issue? He's probably feeling pretty happy about that. Audi Mercedes dropping back, though, in line is going wide is Sully Saad. It's going to allow the likes of Jim Feliz, maybe Ian Cabana to squeak on through, but plenty of drivers finding issues. 2 white Porsches, or similarly liveried Porsches at the very least, battling side by side. Sully Saad holds on to 8th position.
Not confusing at all, but Sully is the lead car. He's in the white and sort of gray Porsche with the Lebanese flag on the rear wing, and Jim is in the white and red. Jim almost gets into the back of Sully Saad up over the top of the hill there. These are such awkward corners because there's a little bit of runoff on the outside of basically every corner, a little bit like the hairpin at Rudskogen, if anybody's ever run that. But it's not a track like Zandvoort where you can run the banking, where you can run the high line and get a run. If you're wide out there, you're off the track. You're falling off camber, and you're going to suffer like Sully Saad did and lose all that ground to Artie Mercedes.
And now as they head back up towards the line, you can just see the alternate track limits that potentially you're allowed here on iRacing. That was 4 wheels very much inside of the white line, but apparently that's okay. Ian Cabana's got a great view from behind as they roll through the corner, and Jim Feliz does indeed grab the position for the time being. Ferrari in the, is it Crikey Esports? I believe it is. Right, in virtual reality as well. It's always interesting to be able to take some of the peaks around. You can see slightly further up though, Dale Peterson and Felix Feliz involved in their own little battle for 3rd and 4th position.
And I don't even think Felix Feliz and Jim Feliz are related. To make it even more confusing, somehow we've got dos Felices in this field. I don't. That's statistically impossible. I don't know how we did that.
How many similarities do we really have though in the series? I mean, again, you posted it in Discord. I think it was today or a couple of days ago. We used to have 2 Ryan Chandlers, one with 1 N and one with 2 Ns.
We split up the Chandlers this season, tragically. We used to have both of them here, but Reagan Chandler has gone to race in the PRL Cup Series. Ryan Chandler has gone to race in the GTP LMP2 Series. So the brothers have been separated. It's heartbreaking.
What's happened to Jason Finch? This is before they've even got down to the final corner, and I can't even tell what car that is, to be honest. You can kind of make out a Porsche logo at the front, but you got to watch the rejoin here.
Can he even get it up the hill? He's trying to motor it up the hill. He's like the little engine that could, and he does keep it going. I don't know why he didn't pull it down pit lane there, because that car is visibly smoking from the rear end. He's just trying to go out as long as possible, I guess.
I guess just trying to make sure that he can come in and make sure that he's got enough fuel, and he gets turned on the nose of one of the Seabow Racing cars. That, guessing it wasn't Douglas Corey, and so therefore by the process of elimination, Artie Mercedes.
I think that was Artie Mercedes. That's his 2nd incident today, so he's not going to be very popular with the stewards. Here's what happened. Interestingly, Finch already lost the front end to that Porsche. So that wasn't even the start of his problems. He already lost the front end. That's maybe why he was so slow coming down the hill, and then already comes into the fray here. He's already missing the front end. You can see it there.
We keep jumping back, and we still keep finding a lack of front end, which I think goes...
Maybe that's just how he started the race. Maybe that's the model he picked out.
I was going to say, maybe he just picked it up on the start. Maybe it wasn't just Jared Keane that got tangled up, or maybe we misidentified which of the Porsches that it was. Maybe that explains just a little bit more. There's been more dramas, as there I'm sure is going to be over the course of the day. This is just David... Well, was there oil on the track?
I think that's synchronized forgetting where the track goes for the two SRT drivers. Kind of an interesting rejoin there, but that's just kind of how you have to do in this part of the track. That was through turn 1, and it is a blind corner. It's an extremely fast corner, and when you don't have all the practice in the world, which all these guys still don't, it's very easy to literally forget where the track goes for just a moment if you lose focus and throw it off the road, as you're going to see in beautiful onboard right here. Just too late of a turn in, and suddenly you're in French gravel, or gravel, I should say.
I mean, this apparently, I was just flicking through the Wikipedia page before we went racing here today, and I remember reading something about how this is something about the most Roman city in France or something, so maybe there's some puns about gladiators that Joey's going to be able to sneak on in over the course of the day. But since right now we aren't seeing too much fighting, we are seeing the battle at the front of the field just intensify. Let's jump on board with Jeff Carollo. He grabs a bit of a swig of water, and let's ride around for a lap here at this brand new facility to iRacing and to us as well. In towards turn number 1, down through the gears slowly and progressively through the triple gauche, quite literally the triple left-hander. They don't get more obvious in terms of corner names than that, but it's all about just maintaining the momentum now down onto the brakes into Virage DuPont. This is where you get your first sense of the elevation down, and then back up as you climb in towards, I guess, what's technically turn 6 or 7 at this point. You can see Carollo hard over the lock as you run through Cariace, and now a bit of a flick over the top of the crest as you plunge back down the hill. Plenty of commitment as you sweep down through Virage du Camion, and this is where we've seen a car go around on power down at Le Cavalier as the drivers pick the throttle back up. A couple of drivers have forgotten to bring the car back over to the left. Can't cut too much of it, clearly, as Carollo just maintains 4 wheels within the track bounds. And now down the hill, this is where you've got to just be brave before you get onto the brakes for one final time. And you look at that tire wall, it's quite intimidating if you get the entry wrong into this final corner. Down to first gear, be careful on traction, back towards the line, and it's only a minute 20 or so over the course of the lap. It's a lap that you're going to do plenty of times over the course of the race, Joey.
And how confusing of a ride along was that? Arjuna did a good job of carrying us through that, but even with that lap along, I've still forgotten half the corners. I've forgotten where the biggest elevation change is. I've forgotten all the corner names except for Carrier Ass, because that one sounds kind of funny. It's a learning experience.
When you say it like that as well, it really does help, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You see those movers and shakers left side of the screen. Ross Sortino's down in 15th spot, trying to recover whatever he can in the championship points, and that's an important thing for him. He'll also be the biggest fan of Tyler Graf right now, hoping that that Porsche can continue just to hunt now at the very front. And of course, Tyler's someone that we've seen more in various other open wheel machines over the years on RaceSpotTV, but this year has taken a particular liking to GT3 and starting to increasingly get more and more up to speed.
And Tyler just did a car change over the last week. He's been in the BMW all season long. That's the car he was more comfortable and experienced with, because that's what he's been competing in on Monday nights in the Lionheart Sports Car Series. But here on Tuesdays, after he's not been able to race on Monday nights anymore, he said, you know what, I'm going to give myself more of a competitive advantage. I'm going to get rid of the BMW. I'm going to hop into the Porsche so I can think about being a little bit faster. And at least in the short term here, it's doing him pretty well. This is the best race he's run all season, and he is putting the pressure on Carollo. He's not closed the gap down necessarily to overtaking distances, but he's kept the gap between about 0.7 of a second, and he's putting the pressure on. That's all he needs to do to force Carollo into a mistake.
And when it comes as well to a track like this, you're not expecting to really make track passes on track, so maybe Graf saving a bit of fuel, maybe that's something that's coming into play there with almost 11 and a half of this minutes of this race complete. That's a look up the inside from Jim Felice in the white and red Porsches. As the battle of the Porsche sees Jared Keane and the RD Mercedes running for 5th on back. These drivers a good 6 seconds off of Felix Felice, who started to increasingly be separated from Dale Peterson in their fight for the final step of the podium. It's always like this when you come to a track for the very first time though, Joey. Drivers that have done more practice, maybe gotten up to speed a little bit quicker, and they naturally rise to the top.
They do. There's still a lot of drivers who don't have a lot of experience, as we see Ross Sortino with that missing front end still. He still managed to go for a dive into the hairpin, getting by Jason Finch, getting by another one of the SRT Porsches as well. Ross Sortino's day is absolutely not over. He was lucky he got that one mistake out of the way early, because he got the entire race distance to make up all sorts of ground, and he might be in the top 10 before the pit stops even come around, or if he's lucky after the pit stops come around, but still, top 10's possible.
Dino Vella's having some technical issues, I do believe, and that's seen him pull to the side of the track. It's not the damage that's caused that. See if we can dial up replays of everything that's going on over the various bits of the track, but as Jim Felice gets past Jared Keane, I'm also noting that Jeff Carollo is almost now broken out of drafting range of Tyler Graft, an important point as well when it goes back to the fuel mileage numbers, but Keane in that 222 is really putting the pressure onto the 5.
It's right on board with Jared Keane, embedded deep in the front end of this Porsche. He took a big sniff of the rear end of Jim Felice's car there, but it's one thing to get very close in the middle of the braking zone. It's another thing to actually go for a move. See him throwing it off the road a little bit there, down to the bottom of the hill, and then into Cavalier. Tries to switch it back with carrying more momentum onto the entry. Just can't quite get close enough, but they're all going to throw it off the road. Target fixation at its best there. Mercedes threw it off the road 2 corners up, and then Keane threw it off the road. Felice threw it off the road as well. That is just, put that in the dictionary next to target fixation.
I mean, oil spill. I think that's what we're just going to call it.
Even I was target fixated, and I wasn't even in the car.
Sully Sard says thank you very much. Not 1, not 2, but 3 positions for the price of 1. And he's now got a top 5 spot after starting down in 13th. I said, would it be unlucky 13th for him? Knock on wood. Not just yet. Not sure if you can hear that, but I made sure. I believe in the commentator's curse. I know Lewis McLeod may not, but I'm going to make sure that I'm not the bearer of bad news when it comes to Sully Sard's fortune. Back at the front, your eyes show that Graf's been able to pull that margin back. These are 2 cars that are identical in performance. They're 2 cars, Joey. It's implied in the name, GT3 Fix Series. Identical in setup as well.
But the critical thing in that sentence is the word driver. The drivers are not equal in driver, and that's what makes the difference in this series. And that's why this is one of the more exciting series in the PRL, because it is just driver on driver action, no setups to worry about, no extra business to worry about. There are some drivers who like the open setup series, and that's why we see it in the GT3 Sprint Series coming up. But for drivers who don't necessarily have the time to build their own setups, for drivers who don't want to have to buy their own setups, they just want to go racing off the shelf like this, it just comes down to the driver. It comes down to your practice. It comes down to your speed. And these two have just been locked together on speed for the first 15 minutes.
At least for the time being. We'll see how it continues to go for them. Some drivers further behind may be wondering, is it time to come down to pit lane, though, with now 15 minutes officially complete. Eric Kulaga's got a message for us, though, Joey.
I've never seen Eric's face before. How about that?
It's always nice when drivers grace us in their Zoom, so we highly encourage it. Eric's got a view of Mercedes and Cabana in front. But yes, message for us, Joey. This is his drop week.
Right now, that is correct. He's Nostradamus well, but I don't know if it's guaranteed to be his drop week. His lowest points week was last week, and a couple of times where he finished 8th. Look at who's ahead of him. RD Mercedes, who's had a few issues. Ian Cabana ahead as well, and a couple other drivers who have made mistakes throughout this day. This could very well not be Eric Kulaga's drop week, because he's been consistent. He's made no mistakes. Might be a little bit slow, but he's made no mistakes, and basically everybody else ahead of him has.
What do we like? What do we think about this VR view that we get with Ian Cabana? I quite like it, being able to see where the driver is looking. You can see him kind of glancing up towards the virtual mirror to see where his competitors are following him as they head their way towards that final sector. And this is where I'm always curious how many of the drivers are actually in virtual reality or not, because it's not something that we often see, Joey, at the very top levels of sim racing.
I'm just very scared about the black nothingness that surrounds the VR, because every time we see that, you see their perspective in VR, you see what they're seeing, but then you realize that surrounding that picture, there's just a black abyss of nothingness. It's
well, for us there is, not for them.
It's philosophical.
They don't have this abyss, as you'd call it. We do.
For all Ian Cabana knows, he's just racing in space right now with nothing surrounding him. He's lost in another world.
We need to get you into virtual reality, Joey.
Maybe. My eyes sweat too much.
I sweat.
Or the sockets around my eyes.
No, yeah, I'm glad that you corrected yourself, because one of those...
That's called crying. I mean, I would be crying with how slow I was, but two different salty liquids.
You're going to set me off. Much like Lewis did during the Campeonato Sudamericano Esports last week. So let's steer away from silence on broadcast as Sully Saad, Jim Felice, 5th, 6th, and 7th position behind Jared Keane, broken away from Cabana, Mercedes, and Kulaga, who we were just watching a couple of moments ago after the synchronized targets fixation, as Joey quite eloquently put it earlier. I wonder how many laps drivers have done of this track, Joey. You know how virtual racing school will tell you you've done this many laps, this many hours. I'd be curious to ask them in the interviews at the end.
I put it in double digits at the very most. I don't think anybody's crossed over into the triple digits. Ian Cabana, rather. Don't know who Eric Cabana is. He's brought it down pit lane here because it is about time to start talking about pit stops. We're past halfway in the race. You do have to make one stop in this series. It's not required by the rules. It is required by the laws of physics because there's simply not enough fuel to make it to the end. And if you are stuck in a train, like a few of these drivers are, if you're struggling to get by like Ian Cabana was, it may be in your best interest to come down pit lane, find some clean air, and turn some clean and fast laps and pull off the undercut that way.
Isn't that quite a short pit stop, or am I just crazy?
6.7. I mean, it may just be a case where there's a lot of time spent on this track at low speeds.
It's almost that much fuel anyway.
Yeah,
gotcha.
It's almost like a Long Beach situation, which makes me wonder: is anybody going to do a zero stop in the sprint race coming up?
Exactly. You read my mind and kind of where I was going. This is still a three-way fight between Saad, Feliz, and Keane, but with Cabana now having made his way down pit lane, Mercedes and Kulaga could very well close back up. And just a reminder as well, you want to follow along with your favorite team and driver, head to PRL.RaceSpotTV to follow along with live timing. That was a bit wide and wild from Jared Keane. It was tight and tidy from Jim Felice. You'll look up the inside of the fellow Porsche of Sully Saad as we work our way to the line. Not really an overlap into the triple gauge at turn number 1, but squeezed onto the inside curb with drivers heading out of pit lane. No swap around just yet, but this is surely going to intensify.
Scary stuff, but well done there. Oh, there goes Jim Feliz around. I think he clipped the curb on the inside just at the wrong angle. That's going to be him off into the grass, and he's going to have to start thinking about incident points soon because he's had multiple off so far today. You only get 13 incident points before you have to serve a drive-through in the PRL, and I have a feeling he might be up to double digits by now.
Let's just take a look at the replay, and you can see
contact
between the two. That's what I was kind of thinking there was. And I wonder if this was, I'm not blaming the traffic here, I just want to make sure I'm crystal clear there. It was just a bit of a misjudgment there from Jim Felice to think that the way the traffic was going, he'd have the opportunity to dive it up the inside.
I think he saw an opening and he went for it. It just didn't work out for him. He saw it through the third part of the triple gauche. Is that the third gauche that he was looking through? It didn't work for him. You can't make a move when you're that far back, when you're not alongside enough. You do have to be fully alongside to basically go for a move at any corner on this track. There's no real hairpins or tight corners at all where you can really think about a dive bomb like you could at basically any other track.
Down the hill as the drivers still battle for the race lead. Now, I was away last week because I was working on the other PRL, the Prodigy Racing League. And Joey, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the Atlanta Motorsports Park quite a bit, but I'm just looking at this track and thinking, it reminds me quite a bit of that track. And it
does look like it.
It's not very often that we get to see tracks like this, and I'm just going to say this. No matter how much practice that you have, this is probably always going to be a demanding technical track.
Yeah, when basically every corner is either blind or off camber or some variety of screw yourself upable, it's so hard to learn. It's so hard to get into a rhythm. It's like another recent addition to iRacing. It's like Rudskogen, but it's far more elevation-y. I'm just inventing new words every sentence here. It's far more difficult than that, and it's impossible to learn. I'm sure we'll come back here in the coming seasons, maybe even next season if they put it back on the calendar, and you're still going to have drivers who are rusty. You're still going to have drivers who are uncomfortable because it's impossible to get used to a track that's totally blind unless you turn hundreds or thousands of laps.
As Jared Keane has dropped back behind Arnie Mercedes after trying to get the move done. I'm just saying that I get the sense that the next time I commentate on a race at this track, it's very likely to be the next time the PRL comes here.
Well, I think we're making history today, Arjuna, because unless I'm very much mistaken, this is the first ever major iRacing broadcast at Ledenon. I don't think anybody's beat us to this.
And no one ever will.
Yep.
I mean, this is yeah. I'm enjoying it. Don't get me wrong. I'm just unfortunately struggling.
BMW M Sim Cup to Ledenon.
Zandvoort was rough enough, even with just 35 odd cars. That's a bit wide from Keane. And now we're going to allow Kulaga to get on. Was there a slowdown somewhere in that?
I think there may have been. That was very, very slow. And look at Eric Kulaga in P7 now. He said this was going to be his drop week. He's above his drop week now. And look at him, he's smiling. He's got to turn over to the right there when he gets a second on the straight and knock that sign down, because it's not going to be his drop week anymore.
You can see that there's something moving in the background, so he's clearly got some airflow in that room, which is always important when you are probably sweating quite a bit, hustling a car around this track. Now, the best that Kulaga can realistically hope for, you'd have to say, is a top 5. Given that he qualified down in 15th position, that's quite remarkable, as I believe Jared Keane is making his way down the pit lane. So the first of the top runners comes his way down to the box.
First of the big takers. Let's see the shortness of the pit stop here. No, this isn't going to be a pit stop. This is a drive-through.
Wow.
He's reached the incident limit already. With 11 minutes to go, you got to be careful. 13 is a drive-through, 17 incident points is a disqualification. So he's only got 4 more to play with.
That is quite remarkable.
Yeah.
And it's a long pit lane. This took 29 seconds. We just finished up the first round of the IMSA Esports Global Championship. A drive-through penalty at Road Atlanta is equivalent of 21 seconds. That is so painful. That is an age.
That gives me an idea, though. IMSA to Ledenon.
No.
Make it happen. I'm sending it into the ether.
How do I mute Joey? Can't find the button. It's not working right now.
Imagine that.
No, let's not imagine that. Although having said that, Road Atlanta is usually quite chaotic. It was pretty clean. Knock on wood.
You've been knocking on a lot of wood tonight.
I know, but that's just we're going to Watkins Glen next time out, Joey, and I'm very, very scared about that chicane.
I mean, I would be scared, but I'm scared of it every time I try and drive through it. It is it's a very scary place.
That's the other thing. GTP cars at that chicane are going to be interesting. Fortunately, these GT3 machines, the GTDs as we call them in that IMSA Esports Global Championship, take that chicane relatively, I'll say, without issue. But I'm guessing that I'm going to be proven wrong now in 2 weeks' time.
You might just be. I like Tyler Graff's line there, by the way. That's the line he's been running all race long. He goes as wide as humanly possible down there through Camion, through Cavalet, because he can. You don't get an off-track for going that wide through there, and he's able to carry so much more speed than Carollo, because I think, frankly, he might just know something Jeff doesn't, or he might just be a little bit more comfortable through that sequence of corners. Either way, he's within half a second, and if they follow David Morse into the pits this time, Tyler, and he does come in, this could be his shot.
And so this is where undercut has to work, but let's be real. Usually it's the overcut that is the preferred and the optimal strategy when it comes to these Precision Racing League events. So it's going to be quite interesting, Joey, how this plays out for the 98 after switching over to the Porsche. It's played out quite well. Hits his marks about as best as you could hope for.
What a weird pit stall. I wouldn't blame anybody for missing their stall, because you're parked in the middle of 2 stalls. And Tyler had to drive over a massive bump before he got into it, so well done to him for actually getting it slowed down. 7.5 seconds, though. That's longer than a lot of stops we've seen today. Ian Cabano was only 6.7. If Carollo's done a good job fuel saving, he might actually be able to extend this gap over Graff if he can have a good in-lap here and have a short stop, he should be comfortable for about 7 laps to go once he comes in.
I wonder if part of the reason, though, why Cabana's pit stop was shorter is saving a bit more fuel back in the pack that's been fighting, whereas up towards the front, they have been pushing each other pretty neck and neck. So, crucially, clean air afforded to the 98 back out on track, and so back up to speed, and now trying to hope and pray that it's enough to be alongside on what is a rather long pit lane exit. So, after a 37.8 second total cone-to-cone time for Tyler Graf, Jeff Carollo goes 1 lap longer, and 1 lap longer beyond that too.
How long can he go? If he can come in with like 5 laps to go, 4 laps to go, that's going to be a minuscule stop, and that'll be an even easier win for Carollo. But no matter where he finishes, if he finishes first, if he does somehow lose this race to Tyler Graf, he's still going to be a very happy boy in the championship because he's already used his drop week. He's got a race to the end of the season with getting every single point he can. Ross Sortino's already used his drop week as well. He's down in 14th. Kulaga's going to finish, I think, 7th at best. Carollo's only going to extend his championship lead if he stays where he is. It's going to be a very good day for him, as it is.
Yeah, I still think Kulaga, hypothetically, has a chance to get up to the top 5, but I think it's somewhat unlikely, all things considered. But we'll have to wait and see. So, more and more cars down the pit lane. Just leaves Carollo, Peterson, Kulaga, Christopher Rhines, the remaining cars, to make their trip down to the box. So surely Carollo can go no longer than the 21st lap on the run. Down to the final corner we are about to find out. Is it going to be off to the right? Yes, it is. Exit stage pit lane, and it's going to be a crucial stop here for the 97.
It's a very hard pit entry. He did well to get it slowed down, but it's a blind pit entry. You can't even see the cones until you're halfway up the hill. And now he's got the hardest pit stop in the game. He's got a lucky assignment. He did qualify on pole, so he gets to drive all the way to the front. He does have another car in his pit stall, though. Steven Martinez is parked there because we've run out of pit stalls. We've had to overlap people. And it's a short stop, 6.8 seconds, while Tyler Graf is stuck in traffic.
Yeah, this is, I think, the bigger part, is just the fact that Graf had a couple of laps of clean air, but now loses out as finally he's going to get on through on the Vulture Motorsports machine. And even though it is a shorter stop, let's see if it's going to be that close. No, it's not. It's going to be a good 2.5 odd seconds between the two of them. But of note, with 6 minutes still left to go, look who's staying out there. Eric Kulaga, the 66, out to the 22nd lap of the run.
What a guy, the fuel machine, Eric Kulaga, the fuel wizard, getting some unearthly fuel mileage in this BMW. I don't know how he's pulled this off. I don't think he's going to be able to make it to the end of the race, but he's still going to get a shorter stop than anybody. He is going to get a spot from Jim Feliz, by the way, who had a terrible pit stop, 18 seconds in the box. I think he must have either left his tires checked or put too much fuel in the car, but that's going to be an extra spot for Kulaga. Pit lane delta at its worst is 37 seconds, so at worst, Kulaga is going to be 7th when he does come in.
So yeah, I think this is where, for Kulaga, he's another one just maximizing his championship points at this unfamiliar and somewhat awkward circuit Ledenon. And as he rumbles down the hill, will he, out of the final corner, make his way off to the right-hand side? No, he will not. How much longer does he have in the tank? Could he be trying a no-stop strategy?
It's going to be hard. I'm looking at his best lap times. His best is a second slower than Carollo's best. His last lap time is about a second slower than his own best. If he is trying to save fuel to make it to the end, I mean, it's possible. I don't know if he's going to come away with the win. Yes, it's possible. It's possible that he could be trying to do this. I don't know if it's going to succeed for him. I think he might need to make a splash and dash with 2 laps to go and try and hang on to P6 or P7.
Hey, if there's any track realistically to try it, if it's a 30-second transit down the pit lane, that's not an unhealthy saving if you're compromising yourself about maybe half a second a lap being realistic in traffic for Kulaga, all things considered. He's not necessarily trying to win if it's a no-stop strategy here with that call, but getting onto the podium could be a very, very beneficial thing to his championship hopes. And 4 minutes to go will mean probably 4 laps to go, maybe a little bit less than that, depending on when your leader crosses the line, all things considered. that gap is also coming down, so you can clearly tell that there is some economy driving going on for the BMW, but there we go. 23 laps was enough, and Kulaga comes almost to a dead stop before the pit lane entry.
I saw him sputtering coming up the hill out of the final corner. It looked like he started to run out of fuel, so he really extended that for as long as he humanly could. It's a short stop, 5.3 seconds. It was a good effort, but how far ahead in the field is he going to come out? Is he going to come out ahead of Mercedes? I don't think he's going to come out ahead of Feliz. I think Felix Feliz is coming by right now, but he might just come out ahead of Artie Mercedes. He's gotta keep moving. It's a long pit lane.
So that Porsche is not Mercedes. It's the BMW that will be Mercedes. There's a Seabow Racing car getting on through. There's Sully Sard as well. And now Kulaga back out in 7th spot. He got quite lucky as well that after qualifying down in 15th spot that his pit box was actually quite close to pit entry. If he really was that marginal on fuel, being any later down the lane could have really hampered his chances of coming back out in a competitive spot. 7th, not a bad day, all things considered. Back up towards the front then with what will be 2 laps to go next time by, I believe, Joey. It is Jeff Carollo that leads, 1.5 seconds, the margin at the front.
It's come down a little bit, though. Tyler Graff was 0.6 faster than Carollo on that previous lap. I don't know if that's going to be a consistent thing for Graff. Carollo's going to cross the line here. We'll get a lap time update now. Has he gone back to his normal ways? I think he is, yes. Down to a 120.2 for him, 120.2 for Tyler Graff. Things have solidified a little bit more, but Tyler's still putting the pressure on, and you can never get complacent at a track like this, because the second you get complacent, the second you say, all right, I've got the win in the bag, just don't make any mistakes to the end of the race, that's when you lose your focus over a blind corner and throw it off the road like we've seen so many times tonight.
Was this Carollo's first GT3 pole ever?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So he's managed to put it on pole. He's managed to withstand all this pressure. He's got the fastest lap under his belt. How many hours has Jeff Carollo done at this track?
That's a good question. I mean, it's at least 2. At least 2 hours is what I would say.
I feel like he's looked quite confident is the thing, in a way that someone who's never been here before wouldn't. I can't see the circuit Ledenon track map up there, though, so clearly...
There's 2 Catalunias.
Yes, but one of them with the good version and one of them with the bad version.
But also, I was talking to Jeff about this over the week because we were making fun of him a little bit about not having Road America, his favorite track up there. He actually got in contact with the company that makes those tracks that he's been connected with, and they got him hooked up. He has a Road America now, and hopefully he'll be hanging it up soon.
It's up
and
there,
also,
mister.
Is it?
Yeah, top
Where?
left.
Oh yeah, it is.
Wow.
The camera was flipped, so I was confused. But yes, Road America is up there. That's my fault. And I can tell you that he sent us a discount code. If you go to allmappedout.com, RaceSpot10 gives you 10% off on one of those track cutouts. Not a sponsor, but a helper of Jeff Carollo.
Yeah, but I was saving that for just myself so that no one else could reap all of those precious discounts. Back towards the line they'll come, and it is going to be 1.2 seconds. The margin's still on this final lap. There's also a fuel pressure warning on the dash for Jeff Carollo. This is the great thing about being able to watch over the shoulder, as we can see just how marginal they are on the fuel numbers.
And that's also not a glitch. Sometimes when we ride on board with GT3 cars on iRacing, it shows us the low fuel error, but that's actually Jeff Carollo's computer. We're actually seeing his perspective.
Yes, no, good clarification there. I was wondering what you're saying for a second. I realized that, yeah, unfortunately sometimes the information shown on screen is not always accurate, but it is accurate to say that out of the final corner, oh, Jeff Carollo's happy with this one. A brand new track to them all. And Jeff Carollo masters it quickest of them all. He wins in the Precision Racing League GT3 Fixed Series on debut at Circuit Ledenon. Tyler Graff take a bow as well with a sterling effort to grab second, and then a while to wait for Dale Peterson, for Felix Feliz, and for Artie Mercedes to run their way to the line. 3rd, 4th, and 5th position in what was a pretty fun opening round of today's doubleheader at Circuit Ledenon, Joey.
It was certainly chaotic. It certainly surprised us many times, but it was very exciting. Artie Mercedes across the line. He may come afoul of the stewards after this. but look at the driver ahead of these two. Cabana and Jim Feliz, they're going to have a photo finish to the line, but Ross Sortino finished 8th. He crashed on lap 1, and he finished 8th.
It does go to show to some degree the attrition that played its part today. Drivers finding their way down onto pit lane after 25 started. Only 17 are going to be ended up scored on the leading laps. And I thought for a second my timing screen was going to say someone ran out of fuel on the final lap, but fortunately that was incorrect, and it seems like everyone has put just enough fuel in to get toward the end. The best part is we got a second race coming up, but Joey's 5 minutes longer. The drivers get open setups to try and figure out the challenge just that little bit more.
Hope we're all ready for that to kick off in just a matter of moments, because you thought this race was crazy. We're gonna have a bigger field, we're gonna have some stronger drivers, and we're gonna have 2 drivers who put on a slugfest in Interlagos last week trying to go for it again.
Let's grab a look at the race results, and for Jeff Carollo, after grabbing his first pole position of his PRL GT3 campaign and career earlier today, it's a second victory of the season to propel him to an even bigger championship advantage. Tyler Graf will grab second in the Nazumi Graphics LC Porsche, while Dale Peterson third, Felix Feliz fourth, and then Audi Mercedes, Sully Saad, Eric Kulaga, Ross Sortino, Ian Cabana, and Jim Feliz, the rest of the top 10, with only Ross Sortino sliding backwards in that field, but albeit after a miraculous recovery drive, all things considered. Christopher Rhines, Waldo Walden, Jared Keane, Luis Grullon, Matthew Saint-Aubin, Douglas Corey, and then David Morsel scored on the leading lap, unlike Michael Kulaga, Jason Finch, and Robert Jeffries. 2 laps down for Kevin Berquist, and then 11 laps down for Jared Deploy and Buck Hamilton, with Dino Vella, Stephen Martinez, Nicholas Johnson, and Sean Mulholland, all also being classified as DNFs here today. So that's a look top to bottom at the race results. Carollo not just fastest in qualifying, fastest in the race, but with the fastest race lap as well. Let's head straight down to victory lane, where the man himself is standing by with Joey Tebben.
He is. Jeff Carollo, welcome back to the booth. I got a message from your teammate Aero Urexoy before the race. He said you'd had this win in the bag. Why was he so confident in you, and how did you prove him right?
I give him props. I was kind of nervous coming to this one. I felt way off pace all week. But Errol's a magician, I guess. He great as a spotter too. Kept the whole race calm. Can't complain one bit.
Calm voice of Aero Urexoy. But you got your Road America track map after you got your first win a couple of weeks ago. Now that you've got a win here, are we gonna get a Ledenon track map now?
I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna get a hold of him and get one of those made also. Hopefully if he can. I mean, going for a championship too. Other than that,
wins are starting to stack up. You're going to run out of wall space. Congrats again, Jeff, and we'll see you next week. Next week.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I want to thank my team, of course. Thank you guys for the awesome broadcast. Thank my girlfriend and her daughter, my stepdaughter, out in Disneyland watching it from vacation while I'm at home, and my kids, of course. And have a good one.
Jeff Carollo coming home with the win. Who needs Disneyland? We've got Disneyland France here in Ledenon, and we've got a Disney character of our own here, second place. He loves the colors. We've got Tyler Graf coming home. Tyler, you were putting the pressure on all race long. What more did you need to maybe jump Jeff in the pits or get by him on track? What more did you need?
Gosh, I don't really know if there is much of a spot to do it on track. The 2 biggest braking zones are at the end of a big hill, and it's just hard to gain momentum like that. So I tried pitting early to do the undercut, and I took just a little bit too much fuel, and traffic wasn't the greatest either, but I don't know, you take that risk when you try to undercut.
You just switched to the Porsche this week after a season in the BMW. How did it fare for you? Did it feel better, or what were the differences?
This car turns, so I like that. The BMW, just you have to baby it so much, and to get speed out of it, it's just kind of boring. So this car, you still gotta be careful with it and let it do some of the work for you. But it's definitely something that fits my driving style quite a bit better.
Car that turns is always a good thing. Congrats on another podium, Tyler, and we'll see you in that beautiful livery next week.
Thanks. Thank you.
Tyler Graf coming home in second. But we got one more driver to talk to, and it's a very happy man once again. Dale Peterson back on the podium. Is Ledenon your new favorite track?
It might be, man. I've done a lot of laps at this place in the last week, more than I care to remember.
How many total laps did you do in practice?
I did a whole bunch of single practice, and I actually did a couple of AI races just to get a feel of being around some other cars. And I did more than I would normally do, but I think a lot of guys feel the same way because it's a new track. We really didn't know a lot of the cars.
Neither did we, trust me. We were still learning them in the booth as the race went on. But congrats on another podium, Dale, and we'll see you next week. See if you can add another one to the total.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Dale Peterson in that beautiful highlighter yellow Ferrari, may I add. No better color to put on a race car, so I'm always happy to see Dale Peterson doing well. That's my one bias I'm going to reveal tonight.
It's always an interesting look as well to see Porsche, Ferrari, Porsche, BMW. Not really any one manufacturer in particular necessarily dominating, but Porsche definitely seeming like, at least today at the front, those that had the car figured out the most were in that respective car. 2 rounds, of course, still left to go as we work our way towards the closing stages of this championship. And of course, November the 14th, it's the same time and same place, but we'll make our way to the land of the rising sun and to one of the longest straights in global motorsports. I'm always intrigued about what happens at Fuji, and I think it's going to be quite interesting, although no rain for these drivers to contend with.
No rain just yet, but that front straight, Ledenon is so packed with corners that I feel like the amount of time it takes you to get down the front straight at Fuji, that's a whole lap at Ledenon. It's craziness. But it's going to be a whole different kind of race. It's going to be a place where fuel saving is very, very important. And hope you get your practice in. We've got the Fuji 8-hour coming up as an iRacing special event as well. So we're gonna have a Fuji festival over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, we've got 8 hours of Fuji coming up this weekend. The drivers, of course, see that though in their next rounds of the championship. Don't go anywhere on RaceSpotTV though. We'll be right back here at Circuit Ledenon with the second part of the GT3 doubleheader with 5 more minutes on the clock and the drivers of the GT3 Sprint Series taking center stage.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
We've already seen them slip and slide their way around Circuit Ledenon once, but now let's see if the drivers in the GT3 Sprint Series of the Precision Racing League, with the ability to dial their cars in, can figure out this mysterious challenge here on a Tuesday evening. Hello folks, welcome back to RaceSpotTV, where Arjuna Kankipati once again alongside with Joey Tebben as we walk you through the second race of the evening with 40 minutes put onto the clock. We've seen some great shots of the drivers working their way around the second half of the qualifying session. But Joey, as they focus themselves on go fast time, we'll take a look at the schedule and remind ourselves that these drivers are on the very same journey as the GT3 Fix Series. Only 3 more rounds of the championship to go.
It looks identical. I'm getting deja vu. Ledenon, Fuji, and Watkins Glen to go. This is going to be a close championship, though, and it's 3 very different tracks where 3 teammates, Andrew Caron, Guillaume Levesque, and Vincent Trepanier, are going to be tested in a Mercedes, in a Porsche. Who's going to be the best across 3 very different tracks? I'm very excited to see how things go tonight, because this is going to be the wild card before we go to 2 known properties in the final 2 rounds.
That's the thing, right? Known properties, the final 2 rounds. Tracks that the drivers, without a shadow of a doubt, will already have setups kind of dialed in for. This is the one where they will have to have done a little bit of experimentation. And Joey, unlike in the Fix It setup series, where you can somewhat jump in and try and figure out the setup on the fly in the practice session before, if you're wrenching on the car in the practice session before this race, you're in for a world of hurt.
Yeah, you're gonna be blazing new trails. You're gonna be a pioneer when you're building setups for this track, because it is so new. And you see some of the more experienced guys up at the top of the table in practice right now. Vincent Trepanier, Andrew Caron. Those are guys who have teammates. Those are guys who have experience in this car. They can maybe build setups a little bit quicker than some guys with less experience.
And so with that, let's take a look at the championship standings, because it is still quite close up towards the front between Andrew Caron and Guillaume Levesque, with the defending champion Vincent Trepanier still very much hot on their heels. 8 points. 8 points between the 3 of them right now, but of course important to note that both for Caron and for Levesque, neither of them have a drop round to really fall back on. Caron DNF the first round of the season, Levesque missed the 3rd round of the season, whereas for Vincent Trepanier it was the last round where he really struggled to stay inside of the top 10. And so with that said, Joey, still have no idea who's really the favorite now with 3 races to go.
And we are missing a couple of these drivers, unfortunately. Dominic Olivier, who put on that absolute show at Interlagos last week with Manuel Troncoso, he's not here in the field tonight. Not feeling the Ledenon way. Neither was Troncoso, for that matter. I think both of them are trying to focus on Fuji 8-hour preparations for this weekend. I hope we'll see them back in the final 2 races of the season, because I can't emphasize it enough. If you haven't seen that finish from last week, those last couple laps between Olivier and Troncoso, Arjuna, you're a fan of mixed martial arts. There was that, but in car form.
Well, the thing that I would say with Manuel Troncoso is this weekend he was competing in the IMSA Esports Global Championship, so maybe some of his focus split there as he gets ready to go to Watkins Glen this coming weekend. But yeah, it looked like a fun fight. I also saw the pictures of the starts. As ever, plenty of hectic action at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, and you could actually see the action. You weren't 3 kilometers away from it or so. The team championship still looking pretty tight, given how things have played out over the course of the season, but it is 43 points that split Lee Sim Pearsons from SimCity Racing. The benefit today is no Daniel Ferguson in the field, so Lee Sim Pearsons missing at least one of their drivers. Can SimCity take advantage here today and make their way a little bit closer in the hunt, Joey?
SimCity doesn't have their hottest gun, Mr. Z, Dalton Zavadil, not in the field tonight. Pucktel is out there, and Martin Crisp is out there as well. But they don't have the guy who's won a race for them this season. That's going to be unpleasant for them at the very least. And that's going to make Lease Esports very, very happy to maybe pick up those 7 points. And it may even open the door for a couple of those teams a little bit further down. CRT, they do have Nane Tavares in the field. And Precision Racing Esports, I believe, has at least 1 driver in the field. There's definitely some openings with a shorter field here.
That's the one thing that's going to be quite curious as well, right? Much like we saw with Ross Ortino, if you have a disappointment in qualifying, you could still find your way back into contention. And once again, with the drivers in that crucial qualifying session, do not forget you can head to PRL.RaceSpotTV to follow along with live timing and scoring, not just in this qualifying session underway right now, but in the race that is to follow as well. It's Vincent Trepanier, currently fastest of them all with a 1:18.150 puck tail, 2/10 further back. And then Guillaume Levesque just behind Andrew Caron, third and fourth positions, but with a 1/10 of a second or so splitting the two of them. Juan Malagon, Simon Theriault, identical times on the board. It's 1 second that splits 18 cars. It's not much between those that have got this track dialed in.
And it may be a shorter field than we're normally used to in this series, but it's going to be action-packed because everybody is so close. Just like you saw in the fixed series, with only 26 cars, there was action every single lap. There were cars off the road seemingly every single lap. You're going to have exactly the same thing here with 40 minutes of racing and potentially some fuel mileage things to talk about. Is anybody going to think about doing the zero stop? Guillaume Levesque is always a crafty guy thinking about that kind of thing. Could he be the driver who maybe thinks about getting his first win this season on fuel strategy and eliminating a stop entirely?
There is the Luis Pearson's 888 heading towards the line. I've been teasing Daniel Ferguson as Malagon up to second and only 2/10 off of pole position, as Levesque finds himself with a marginal bump in time up to third. We're just teasing Daniel Ferguson. I think he's another one that's preparing for Watkins Glen this coming weekend, but that's the reality of sim racing for so many of these drivers. Joey is bouncing across different series, across different cars, and across different tracks as well. That's sometimes why we enjoy someone like Sean Campbell so much.
I enjoy this guy right here on screen, downtown Gary Brown. He's actually uptown Gary Brown right now. He tends to like these new tracks. I remember he kind of figured out Jerez before anybody else did when that track first came to iRacing. And now that Ledenon's come here, he's put it up in the top 10. And it may be a short field, but he's ahead of some guys who he's really doing some good stuff to be ahead of. He's ahead of Martin Crisp. He's ahead of Charles-Etienne Boucher. He's ahead of Fernando Jaquez. Those are some fast guys. Nene Tavares all the way down at the bottom. Those are guys who Gary Brown is legitimately beating on pace here, and he's having his best run of the year so far.
And someone that you've got to wonder as well, when you go from the fixed to the open setup series, Joey, does the driver just start to grab setups here, there, and everywhere, or do they start to understand the dynamics of the car, what they need to do to make their particular machine faster? Of course, Gary Brown is stuck with the Porsche as he pulls to the side of the track, and I think he's going to call it quits for this run in qualifying, and indeed the session as well, with just 50 seconds to go. But has he really been diving into that car and getting to know the intricacies of its engineering?
Well, the unfortunate reality for Gary Brown is that he has no teammates in the field today. He has no Justin Delano. He has no of his other Vulture Motorsports teammates. Arrow Urexo is not here. So if he was building a setup, he had to do it all on his own over the past couple of days. I have to imagine, like the majority of drivers in this field, though, he went to one of the fine setup shops of iRacing, said, I'm going to pick your finest off-the-shelf setup here for Ledenon, and maybe do some of his own adjustments during practice, some couple small adjustments to fit his driving style, but I have to imagine he's gone to the setup store.
There's plenty of them to jump your way between as well. Here's Michael Terrafino in the Ferrari 296. It's about 7/100ths of a second improvement. Jumps him up to 11, and he will get another crack at the qualifying lap if he can find any more speed. The purple people-eating machine of Ted Lowendick runs to the line, and I will just point out very quickly, as there's no improvement there, that Brian Till came up with a line during Prodigy Week about the Purple People Eaters, and he was very delighted and tickled almost when I told him that I commentate on a sim racing team that is known as the Purple People Eaters. He's the man currently on pole position, though, and Joey trying to make even more of a statement.
I think Vincent Trepanier should become the Purple People Eater, because he really has been, and he's going to go even faster on his final lap, picks up 9 thousandths. And as if pole wasn't good enough for him, he says, you know what, I'm gonna extend my margin a little bit. He's gonna be very tough to beat here. He was tough to beat at Jerez when he won his race this season, and he's just dunking on the rest of the field. Miguel Angel Fonseca, he gets a couple of extra spots at the end. Good for him to be up into unlucky 13th in the 413.
Let's see if Guillaume Levesque can jump even more up from third after he slid on forward from fifth. Unfortunately not going to happen, and the Luis Pearson entry will line up behind Vincent Trepanier to get us underway for the 40-minute dash that lies ahead. We've got 40 seconds to go before we get underway. Slightly smaller field potentially, but that sometimes comes with these newer tracks. You'd expect with Fuji and then going to Watkins Glen that the field size will balloon back up, but not just because they're popular tracks, but Joey, because there's going to be a bit of a break between our final race of 2023 and us getting underway for 2024.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of the month of December to hang back a little bit, maybe spend some time not staring at our iRacing screen, or maybe having some fun and doing some alternate things on iRacing. So I'm looking forward to that break, but I'm looking forward to the final 3 rounds of the season because it's so close between Trepanier and Levaik and Corone as well that we're going to bring this down to the final race. I can guarantee it in the GT3 Sprint Series.
And the interesting thing for those of you wondering what's happening in the future of the Precision Racing League, well, you can head on over to precisionracingleague.com to learn more, moving into sign-ups, of course, as well for future racing series, but 9 race championships coming up with a pre-season event to dial in all of the different things for the series. That's one of the things to look forward to for 2024. Let's run you down through the starting grid, though, for the third to final round in this 2023 season for Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series, because the numbers may be small, but we know that you only need 2 to put on a show. It will be Trepanier and Malagon on the front row, split by 0.2 of a second as Vincent Trepanier grabs what is his second pole position of the season. It's Guillaume Levesque then that lines up inside of Ryan Pucktel with Andrew Corone and Simon Theriault 5th and 6th positions. The championship leader rolling from the inside of the third row. Kevin Simpson in the McLaren is alongside Martin Crispin, the newly liveried Ferrari, at least to me, with Gary Brown and then Fernando Yaquez inside of your top 10, Michael Terrafino and Charles-Etienne Boucher, 11th and 12th positions, with Miguel Angel Fonseca and Ted Lowendick behind then. It will be Josiah Farrow, Ray Dominguez, Rapid Ray, who we saw in the BMW MSIM Cup this past weekend alongside on row 8, Nani Tavares, Diego Ere behind them, and bookending your top 20, Patrick Bachelard and Joseph Carnes. It will be Lance Loomis and Miles Brown that make up the rest of the field. And I must say, I'm quite disappointed because, Joey, correct me if I'm wrong, but my eyes see in that Purple People Eaters voice chat room a certain Nick McLaughlin, but I don't see a Nick McLaughlin in our field here today.
You're exactly right. You're not mistaken there, and I think we should take this to the man himself. We should confront him before this pace lap gets going in a couple of seconds.
Before
Nick.
we do that, let's also go ahead and take a look at the driver wall. But Nick, indeed, why aren't you in the race today?
Why? Where is he? He's not even there. He's not in the assortment of drivers. Vincent Trepanier on the top next to Ted Lowendick. You've got Miguel Angel Fonseca and Boucle d'Or, Charles-Etienne Boucher in the middle, and Guillaume Levesque on the bottom. But Nick, you're in the Discord. You're reaping our data benefits, but you're not in the field. What's going on?
We're simply riding along as a spotter today for Teddy. I was late to the race. I have not turned a lap of this track, and it's a bit of a doozy looking at it. So better sit out this one than cause a wreck.
Well, as we get the word from the man himself, it's as the drivers run their way to the line. 40 minutes of racing, and are we going to go 3 wide into the opening corner? Vincent Trepanier leads them into the triple gauche and around the outside. Can Juan Malagon hold on to second? He gets bullied by Guillaume Levesque in the Mercedes, who slides on through, as does the points leader, Andrew Corone as well. Down the hill into the braking zone they will go. Malagon stymied the bleeding. Pucktel's got in front of Simon Theriault and holding on to that position, but the outside row getting a little bit swarmed in through the opening sector as they continue to fight now almost 3 wide in the middle sector.
I got a little bit overeager there into turn 1, Arjuna, but it looked like Vincent Trepanier was throwing it off into the gravel 1 quarter in. He had half the car in there. I don't know how he managed to get things back going and steer it back onto the track and hold on to that lead, because that looked like it was a free ticket to gravel land for him. Everybody else filing through the bottom of the hill, though. Back up over the top, Ray Dominguez and Gary Brown side by side. They're trying hard not to make contact, but they're still side by side in about half the packs of this field. Gary Brown spins.
And in front of them, it's going to allow the likes of Simpson to continue to try and hold off Charles-Etienne Boucher. That's a stricken Ray Dominguez down into the final sector as the McLaren on the outside into the final corner. We knew you could fight, but I didn't think you could fight this hard here at Circuit Ledenon. It's going to be a 7-car train that will lead them towards the line, though, with Trepanier and Levesque. Corone, Malagon, Pucktel, Theriault and Chris breaking away cleanly at the start. They're not done fighting behind. Up the inside, Boucher might not like this track, but he's got 8th for the time being.
And also in that Dominguez and Brown incident, Ted Lowendick got punched in the face off the track by Gary Brown. He's joining the fray there as well. But we ride on board with Fernando Jaquez almost into the back of that McLaren and Kevin Simpson. Getting the front of that Ferrari burned on the flames. That was very, very close. That's not going to be the last time you see that, because that's the effect of the stack up into these hairpins. You've got to make sure to adjust your braking point. Got to make sure not to get too late in the brakes, because there are so many places where that accordion effect happens, and you don't want to be the first driver to lose their front end today.
First driver to be done. Unfortunately, Gary Brown, we were singing his praises, and his car seemingly with too much damage to continue. And so as we get ready to come to the end of the second lap, the only thing that I think we can really go back and do is cycle through some replays. And it starts here with, I think it's going to be Miguel Angel Fonseca on the outside getting hung out to dry.
He clips the curb. He goes a little bit Tony Hawk Ollie style, putting the car up on half the curb, and cold tires once again, almost like Ross Sortino in the fixed race, loops it around. But this was the big incident. Rapid Ray Dominguez in the BMW, Gary Brown in the Porsche on the inside. Ray, nothing he did wrong. Gary actually clipped the curb on the outside, got oversteer into the corner, and spins right into the path of Dominguez. And then you'll see a couple quarters after this, once Gary gets recovered, there's what happened to Ray. He loops it around, gets it going. But Ted Lowendick comes through, and he's just going to get absolutely punched in the purple people eater face there by Gary.
Deserved in that purple people eater machine. It's just too intimidating. That's the problem. And so Lowendick loses out, and he's still running, albeit now 20th and last of those still in contention. Still at the front, though. 7 cars, as mentioned, holding on. And unlike kind of, I think, what we saw in the first race, where it was a 2-car train at the front, I don't get that sense right now. I very much get the sense that it's going to be a good 20 minutes of 7 cars playing a conga line at the front, and then as we head off into the pit stop cycle, Joey, things will start to get intriguing.
And Malagon has every reason to be aggressive here. He started on the front row with Trepanier, and he's only behind these 3 teammates because he got target fixated. He followed Vincent Trepanier off into the gravel into turn 1. Trepanier was able to get it back on track in time, but Malagon was a little bit further wide and lost the position on the outside.
I think I've got a slightly different view on that, to be honest.
Do you?
I feel like Guillaume Levesque correctly was aggressive at the start and got his way on forward. That's a slowdown for the points leader, surely, because Andrew Caron's dropped now behind Pucktel, but made sure not to let Simon Theriault get on through, so that's also a bit of an important distinction. I tell you what, there's only one way to solve this. It's the benefit of sim racing.
Replay time. Exactly.
Go back to the replay, look at the start, and we can figure out what happened. Now, this is something that was also brought up by some of the drivers after the IMSA Esports Global Championship season opener. When you've got teammates, you can sometimes coordinate just a little bit. So, from up above, remember, it's a big uphill climb towards the line. Initially, Malagon comes alongside, but as they get underway, Guillaume Levesque, I think, was already there.
He was there, but Malagon was on the outside, and he was too late in the brakes there. You see, he was trying to get back around, trying to take the position, and then you see Trepanier off into the gravel. Malagon almost follows him wide as well, and that's when, at the very least, Caron comes through third in line. So it was a mix of both. It was a mix of team efforts between those 2 teammates, organizing things with Vincent Trepanier, and also Malagon making a little oopsie and going a little wide in turn 2.
I think Malagon was just also trying to open up the corners to see if he could attack back down into the hill, but wasn't afforded the opportunity, and now we'll have to try and avoid the slowdown. This is the one thing as well that they're all having to figure out with the track limits. You mentioned it with Tyler Graf. He had maybe understood that there were places around the track where he could run maybe a bit more aggressive lines than the race leader Jeff Carollo in the GT3 Fixed Series. We'll see if any of these drivers find themselves in a somewhat similar predicament as we jump on board with Guillaume Levesque down the hill through the compression. And this is one of the places where SRO race director Brian Till would be very disappointed with all 4 wheels being off the track.
Can we get Brian Till in one of these final 2 races of the PRL season?
Oh, he was fantastic, I must say.
We'd get him as a cameo?
I mean, Joey, if we let him into the broadcast booth, they would never want us back again, is all I'll say.
That is true. A guy who's been around forever, and he was a driver. People forget that about Brian Till. He started as a driver and moved into the booth like so many drivers do. But he's got such a commentator voice that you don't think of him as a driver in the past.
Yeah. He qualified and raced in his Soul 500, Indy 500, creative with his background. But I must say, I'm enjoying the efforts of Boucle d'Or, Goldilocks in that number 924. He's made his feelings quite strongly known.
At least he showed up, though. I applaud that. I applaud him for showing up here at Ledenon and suffering through all the trouble. And that's all you can ask for. He's been very fast this season. He's a new name to the PRL. He's got more letters in his name than anybody else in the field. But I hope he keeps coming back, because I'm a big fan of Boucle d'Or. What is Arjuna drawing? Oh, there we go. How about that? How nice.
I figured we might as well have some fun. I don't know how much fighting we're going to see here today, so break out the yellow pen tool and analyze some smiley faces.
And Mr. Boucle d'Or there, he's actually, speaking of drivers who have had real-life racing experience, he's raced in Canada in the Nissan Sentra Cup before. You see all those little cars going around at like F1 support races in Montreal. He's one of those people who does that.
I'm just saying that some of those support series, smaller races, are some of the most fun you could do. We were talking about VW Fun Cup, the Ford Ka racing series in the UK as well. Have you ever seen a Ford Ka?
I have seen a Ford Ka.
I forget that you actually spent some time in the UK, so you appreciate what that is, but I'm sure a lot of people in the US are probably just hearing Ford Ka and going, what?
Wow, Arjuna decided to pronounce car differently today.
Exactly, yeah, very differently. I wonder how to spell that. C-A-H? K-A-H?
I don't know, but it's a two-letter. You don't see a two-letter car name often. It's just Ford Ka. Ka. One syllable. Ka.
They're quite cute, but I wouldn't want to go racing in one of those, to be honest. They do kind of look like death traps.
I mean, if we could get old Boucle d'Or, Charles-Etienne Boucher in our live chat channel, we might get to talk to him about some of those little car experiences. We might have to organize that in the next 2 weeks.
Someone pops into our chat, by the way, that the track seems terrible. I must say, I'm loving it. Especially,
that's Michael Diaz, by the way.
Is that Michael Diaz?
That is Michael Diaz of GTP and Formula D competition, the PRL this season, and very much not a GT3 competitor this season. I think he's very thankful for that.
I was going to say, can you imagine GTP cars around here even without GT3s?
I want to see it.
No, you don't. You really don't. Although I'm sure Jerome Berthiaume and some of the other head honchos at the Precision Racing League could make that happen, and of course the people behind the Precision Racing League also making the Prodigy Racing League happen, so I made sure to give Jerome and company a big shout out over the course of last week. 10 minutes are done in this race. It's starting to tick on by just a little bit more. Josiah Farrow fans show up in chat with their driver back in 13th spot. Only 8.5 seconds off of your race leader, so really not losing out too much in terms of the time right now. I wonder if Vincent Trepannier's experienced elevation changes like this in his bus before.
I mean, Montreal's pretty hilly. Have you ever been to Montreal?
No, I have not. I've never been to Canada.
Well, I don't know if Vincent's. I don't think he's actually a bus driver in Montreal, like the city. But I don't actually know. He might be downtown. I remember when I was in Montreal to go to the F1 race in 2015. We were walking up to go to whatever the famous smoked meat restaurant is called. I already forget what it was called, but it was at the top of the highest hill I've ever seen in my life. It was painful.
You know what I am hearing listening on to the onboard here is not anything painful from you, Joey, but a painful amount of fuel saving going on right now.
Zero stop, please. That would be fun. I'd be here for it. And these are the guys who have done it in the past. Guillaume Levique, his favorite thing to do at Long Beach was to go for the zero stop. And Vincent is kind of the apprentice, the master beating the apprentice right now. If both of these guys make it to the end, that'll prove my hypothesis.
Turn up the engine a little bit. Let's listen in. I mean, it doesn't sound very exciting, but it's a long time off throttle down the hill there for Vincent Trepanier. And I must say, if it is a no-stop race, you must be leading. There's no ifs or buts about it. You're not passing Vincent Trepanier unless he makes a mistake.
Exactly. You can. That's something about Ledenon that is not necessarily conducive to good racing, but it is conducive to a very comfortable leading situation. If you keep the car within the confines of the track, that's all you have to do. There's no other way to get by unless you're much, much faster. It's almost like an F1 race at Monaco. Unless you're like 3 seconds a lap faster, you're not getting by on track. You've got to hope for a mistake.
This is what Joey was mentioning slightly earlier today, by the way, when we were talking about Jeff Carollo. Some of these onboard shots do indicate that there's fuel issues, but don't worry, Guillaume Levesque's perfectly fine when it comes to the fuel on board the 888, at least at Pure Sim's entry. It's just a trick of the eye here on iRacing, something you've got to kind of get used to. But fortunately in the sim, the digital dash in the car itself is not the only measure of fuel that you have. So many of these drivers will have extra programs and whatnot helping them to understand, all right, this is what I hit last lap on fuel. This now means I have to have this on the next lap, the lap after that. All these extra tools, Joey, that make the life of the driver just that little bit easier.
And I told Reese this last week, Arjuna. Guillaume Levesque's nickname is Mini-Yi, but his face is so close to the camera every single week that he's got to be Mega-Yi by now. He's not Mini.
Your puns are pretty bad, Joey.
That's not even a pun. That's just a physical reality of size. That's like astronomy.
I know, but you try to like make it a pun.
Well, you said I was going to be making puns all broadcast long, and I haven't made one yet.
I know.
You lied to those people. You let them on.
Oh no, I walked right into it as well. Oh, goodness.
See you later, everybody. Arjuna's got you for the rest of the show. I'm going to... I don't even know where.
No, don't worry. I've got the entry button queued up right now. We'll make it even better. We'll make sure the viewers don't have... Oh, congratulations, Joey. That was masterful there.
Give me the championship.
I mean, we don't do RaceSpot end of year awards. You'd have to have friends in high places for that, but goodness. Yeah, that's probably worthy of it. Let's take a look further back in the field, though, because some drivers are actually having some fun. Rapid Ray, or Roller Coaster Ray as maybe is more fitting. Qualified down in 16th spot, has the purple people eating machine of Ted Lowendick trying to get up the inside, gets a bit loose off the corner, as the BMW holding on to 16th spot for the time being. It was a lot of fun seeing Rapid Ray in the BMW M-Sim Cup this past weekend, Joey.
Yeah, I did look at that broadcast for a couple of minutes' time. I can't say I watched the entirety of it, but I did see that Ray Dominguez. I saw that Ray Dominguez was in the field, and I was like, wow, that's my guy. Good for him.
Yeah, he's hoping to be back in the top split come, not this coming weekend, but next weekend for the final round of the championship. It'll be interesting to see how many people show up. The fun thing about the BMW M-Sim Cup is just how many different teams end up showing up and get their opportunity to race, and it was fun to see Ray in the mix, and now we'll get to see if he gets a second chance in the race at Suzuka to show even more of an improvement. What was at 1.7 cars is trending, is verging on maybe becoming as much as a 14-car contingent. This means one thing and only one thing to me, Joey. The no-stop is not just possible, we're seeing it unfold in front of us.
I think that is what's happening, because Trepanier was quicker than basically everybody. He was much quicker than anybody from second on down in qualifying. He had like 3/10 over Levesque, if I remember correctly. He had 6/10 over, I think, down to 7th. So the fact that everybody's as close to him is not a fact of everybody getting faster and Vincent getting slower. I think everybody is doing a very good job of saving fuel right now and trying to either make it to the end or make that fuel stop as short as humanly possible. And if anybody can do it, it's going to be Guillaume Levesque. That Mercedes was the car that successfully did a zero stop earlier this season when Daniel Ferguson pulled it off. So if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be him.
The thing was with Ferguson in particular that we did, of course, see him kind of lose out a little bit in the first part of the race with the heavy nature of the fuel saving that he really had to do. It wasn't necessarily in the second spot to be such a factor. I sent Daniel a message right now, actually, just asking no stop possible, and he said he doesn't believe so. The pit lane is too small, but again, if it's a 30-second delta just to transit the lane, that's, I think, more significant than maybe he was thinking with his limited experience and probably no laps having done practice for this one. So just keep it in mind, with almost half this race complete, there is still very much the presence and the threat of a chance of a no-stop race, but potentially it is not possible, and it's all just about maximizing your fuel gains and the advantage you can have right now. For Andrew Carone, that one slowdown, Joey, how much he must be ruining that here.
He's definitely going to be ruining it, but if you think about it, in the grand scheme of things, he hasn't actually lost that many positions, and he is a couple of cars back in the train, which could be even better for fuel saving, because he has a little bit more of a checkup in front of him. He can slow down a little bit more, because everybody else is slowing down more in front of him, and he's not going to lose the train. Obviously, he'd want to be a little bit further ahead. He would probably want to be in the top 3 right now, but he's still riding well. He's still on pace to make this strategy work, and it could be far worse.
Could be far worse indeed. Enjoying as well, seeing just how many different lines there are around the track as he once again just here on board with Trepanier, how much of fuel saving is really going on here. These drivers are having to drive to a number. It's sometimes maybe not as fun as being able to push flat out full tilt, but it's a skill in and of itself, and they're making the most of it, just down rolling the momentum to the bottom of the track, and now picking up the throttle once again. You can see Levesque just that little bit tighter. Behind the Porsche of Juan Malagon just continues to work as well. 7 cars split by just under 2 seconds as they work off the corner. Down in towards the final sector of the lap. If you are going to pit, the benefit of the field being this bunched up is the fact that these drivers are basically guaranteed, Joey, some clean air. Tyler Groff, though, did say that when he caught the traffic, it wasn't as pleasant as he thought it might be.
And also, I just looked over at my timing screen again, because I'm curious about the fuel saving. If these guys are saving fuel to go for a 0 stop, they're as fast as they've ever been in this race. Vincent Trepanier just ran only a couple thousandths slower than his fastest lap of the race. Everybody behind him is a little bit slower, understandably, because they're in a train, but if Vincent Trepanier is saving fuel at the head of the field, he's been saving fuel since lap 1, which may be true. That may be what he's had to do to make the strategy work, but he's been at it all race long, because those lap times have not changed whatsoever in the last 15 laps.
Consistency. It's what the top drivers are so capable of doing, and yeah, just look at this for a stat. Trepanier, best 6.56, last 6.91, within just about half a tenth of a second of that fastest lap time. You can see the field behind starting to close. Nani Tavares leading them as well. 7, 8, it could be as much as 10. Charles-Etienne Boucher's lost out here as well. Was there a mistake somewhere from Boucle d'Or?
I think there was. I didn't see what it was, but he has lost a spot to Nane Tavares. He's in trouble with Fernando Jaquez all over the back of him. I think we're gonna have to break out the Panopticon again. We're gonna have to give him something really to frown about.
Let's see if we can figure this one out. Oh, that is forgetting your braking zone. I think we can very much agree on that.
Yet again, it's the third gauche that catches people out. It almost caught Trepanier out on lap 1, and poor old Boucle d'Or finds the gravel and loses that one spot to Nane Tavares. He was just outside of the end of the train, so I think he was actually pushing a little bit to get stuck to the back of the train, and with that came a little mistake and a little bit more frustration, and probably more of a frown on his face in addition to the grotesque frown that was an image on the side of his Zoom.
Yes, that was an interesting picture that he chose. Going back to it as well, Ted Lowendick, I'm very disappointed in his lack of proper effort for the background here today. He could have done something interesting with a filet mignon or something. I'm sure he could have come up with something more creative than his basement room, as I was going to say. I thought there was contact, and Rapid Rays sent around the Purple People Eaters, Ted Lowendick.
Well, good on Ray. What a guy. Braking, slowing down, letting Ted get back by because he knew that was his fault. That's the second time Ted's got punched in the eye today. First it was Gary Brown, then it's Ray Dominguez. They're all just bullying him just as we are because they know he's not putting in the full effort. He put on a Shane Van Gisbergen shirt. Good for him, but that guy's not even French. What are you doing?
It's a good shout, actually. It could have been something there, but no, it's just the Trackhouse shirt. He had the Ohio voted badge, though, to be fair. So he's
There you go.
fulfilled his civic responsibilities today. It is... what's the day, Joey? I'm not actually a full American yet, so I should know this, but
Election
I don't.
day?
No, but like, what's the actual election? Like,
Well, it's because it's an odd numbered year, so there's not a ton of elections. But in Ohio, they're voting on ballot measures. In states like Kentucky and Mississippi, they're voting for their governors. In Virginia, they're voting for the state legislature. It's all sorts of fun. In Pennsylvania, we're voting for a Supreme Court judge. It's getting all sorts of. It's getting minorly political before we get into next year when we'll have all the big elections.
oh
again.
yes, no, next year's the big one. But these aren't midterms. What are these called? Like,
These are like midterms almost, because
Okay.
they're off-cycle years, they're odd-numbered years. Midterms
the ones that
were-
no one cares about but actually get stuff done elections, basically.
Something like that. The midterms were last year when we were between presidential elections, and it was
Yes.
just congressional elections. But
That
That's a
I
lot.
get. Yes. It's okay. So someone needs to make up a catchy phrase for this, because clearly CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, they're not making enough money of this election cycle.
Race Spot News.
There we go. I'm just
Coming
saying. I mean, Joey, have you ever wanted to call a state?
to call a state.
Yes.
I mean, I do love Steve Kornacki, so yes,
It does seem like a lot of fun, doesn't it?
I'll be the Race Spot Steve Kornacki. We'll have some fun. We can do every election of the world.
You know what?
Because we might have two big elections next year. We could have a UK
True.
general election and a US general election in the same month next year. Get excited, folks. This is going to be the new political channel. We're going to take over.
You know what I didn't get to do, Joey?
Vote.
No. Well, that yes, but it was something that I said live on a PRL broadcast I was going to do.
Well, let's do it. It's never too late.
No, it is a bit too late.
Never too late.
Not this PRL, I'll just say, the other PRL.
Ah.
You know where I'm going with this?
No.
I didn't run the Atlanta Motorsports Park.
Oh, okay. Now I see where we're going. We got there eventually. You didn't? Did you walk it at least?
No.
You didn't even walk it?
I didn't even get to step foot on it.
You were just in the media center all day?
We started live streams at 8 o'clock in the morning, showed up at the track at 6:30 in the morning every time, and nope, didn't get to step onto the track one little bit.
Did you at least get to go to the Coca-Cola Museum?
No, but I used to live in Atlanta, so I've been there before.
Okay, there you go. You
Yeah.
ate some peaches?
No, but I had dinner with Zach Campbell at the proper Atlanta barbecue place, so that was nice.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Also, we've got some encouragement in the chat. We've got Q3 SimSport. I feel like I know who that is. I should know who that is. I'm going to click on his channel and find out who he is as we speak right now, because that's a guy who races in the PRL, if I'm not mistaken. Jay
Is it?
Steffi. Of course I know that guy. I know Jay Steffi.
No Ford in the field? Jay, I'm disappointed.
But he's endorsing Steve Kornacki, our favorite statistician of nighttime
Favorite
TV.
caller of states?
Yes. And then JD55, Josiah Farrow's biggest fan, says the news network no one asked for but didn't know they needed. And that's exactly correct.
Joey will bring his puns. I don't have
Yes.
puns, but I'm sure we can find analogies to make things work. By the way, Joey, you're
Q3
wrong.
SimSport is not Jay Steffi. I clicked on the channel and clicked on a video, and it was Jay Steffi highlighted in the iRacing UI.
Shaking
so maybe
my head.
did this guy just upload Jay's video for him?
Apparently, well, this is where now Detective Tebben is on the case, because Joey's not going to now forget about this for the next 14 and a half minutes while we wait to see if there's going to be a no-stop or not. We're also seeing arguments, by the way. Guys, there's enough Josiah Farrow to go around. Jordan Groves is now claiming that he's Josiah's brother.
see,
Josiah's
this is-
biggest fan.
This is politics already. We're gonna elect Josiah's biggest fan next year. We're not gonna be focusing on the political realities of the U.S. and the U.K. We're going worldwide. We're gonna be in a whole nother dimension of political realities. That's how we don't make anybody angry. Also, he says Jay's a good friend of his. He runs his pedals, so I guess that's how he gets the right to confuse me.
Interesting.
Also, Adrian the Great. I believe that's Adrian K. I don't remember his last name. Adrian Kukulis, who's a recent Precision Racing esports driver. I think we'll see him in the field So that'll be good for him. We're getting all sorts of people in the chat tonight.
I mean, Joey, you wanted to leave Tuesday nights last season, and then the field brought you back in. I think you're going to have to take a look at the field next season and decide, does the schedule, does the entry list excite you again? Because the reality is that you and I have done this series now going on, what, a year and a half or something?
Something like that.
Yeah, I would be very interested in maybe going and doing some GTPs. I wonder what the drivers would be thinking as well.
Well, I don't know who's going to be here next season, because this is in a convenient place in the iRacing calendar where some of those big names like Troncoso and Ferguson and Guillaume Levesque had a chance to be off and to have a chance to run some league competition. But I don't know. I hope we'll get some people next season. But also in the back of the field, it looks like Charles-Etienne Boucher and Nene Tavares have come together, Arjuna. They almost came together earlier, and it's finally come to blows. We finally got some action.
Boucle d'Or, what have you done? It's under braking, or is it mid-corner?
Oh, just a little bit of a Ferrari rear-end kiss and turns Nene around. It looks almost identical to the Ted Lowendick Ray Dominguez incident. Here we go off the corner. There almost didn't look like there was contact between the two cars. Maybe a little bit of latency between the two, but I don't think Boucle d'Or was expecting that to happen. And he clearly felt bad because he waited for Nene to get going before he went going again.
Agreed. And so helping to try and redress it, but Arnaud Genet will probably potentially still end up taking a look. Josiah Farrow gets 2 positions there, and the fan club goes wild in the YouTube chat. 12 minutes to go, though, and the fact that, Joey, we've seen no one down to pit lane, I'm increasingly becoming more and more confident the no stop is what we are potentially seeing playing out in front of us. But with every lap that passes by, I get increasingly nervous about how close to the margin that these drivers will be, knowing that it's a climb up to the line on the final lap of the race.
Remember how far Eric Kulaga made it in the fixed series race? He made it about 26 or 31 minutes, something like that, in that race before he was eventually forced down to the lane. We're getting close to that now, 29 minutes. I don't know. If anybody is going to pit, it's going to be in the next couple of minutes, and then that'll tell us the answer. So we see nobody with about 5 minutes to go. I think that tells us that every single driver is going to the end. But if you are going to pit, you're going to have to do it right now and hope that everybody else does have to come in.
Back to the line, end of lap 22. Only Gary Brown has retired from this race. Everyone else is still out there and circulating. And of course, we go to Fuji, we go to Watkins Glen after this one to close things out. It's still, of course, the fact that there are 7 cars in this leading train that is remarkable. But of course, Tavares and Boucher, after their little spill with one another, now effectively have dropped those behind, including Yaquez and Simpson to a couple of seconds further back. Andrew Carone now behind Simon Theriault after he drops another position.
Door was open for Martin Crisp as well to potentially get another spot out of Carone there. Didn't happen, but you've got to pounce when you get the opportunity. When the door opens, you literally have to take the chance. There's no waiting at Ledenon. There's no opportunities for errors like you did just see here. Here is that mistake through one of the longest corners of the track. I believe that's the 3rd gauche. And then off of the curb.
Slow down.
That's slow down.
Yeah, and you could see it was on the inside of the apex. So watch right here. Watch right there.
Yeah. Too far to the inside. There's a lot of asphalt in the inside, but you can't use it. I don't even know why it's there, because you can't use it. So don't do it.
But this is the thing that we were kind of wondering before we went live: is how has this track really survived over the years? Given that, it hasn't really been used for anything major outside of French national championships. I mean, Italian GT came here once in 2002, but yeah, outside of that, French Formula 3, French Formula 4, and the French GT championships are the major things here. And so the reality is a difficult technical track like this with, club circuit racing potentially being its driving force for income, Joey, it's got to have a bit of runoff for the less skilled to take advantage of.
It does. I just don't understand the runoff on the inside of the corner. Like, I don't understand what that gains, but I guess it is just a little bit of help if you are a dentist in your club car and you miss the braking zone, you lock up and you have to go through the middle of the track. It'll be slightly less bad as if you were going through grass, but it does make for very, very pesky slowdowns.
I'm just wondering, has your dentist ever listened to your broadcasts?
I don't think so, but something I've noticed about dentists, Arjun, the people have called me crazy about, is that every single dentist I've ever seen, they talk about other dentists in the context of their sports fandom. They want to make you comfortable. When they send you to another dentist to get another procedure done, they say, "Oh yeah, this dentist is a good dentist,
Right.
big sports fan," as if that's gonna calm me down, as if that means anything. It's just a dentist thing.
Interesting. Fernando Yaquez and Diego Ere have not saved enough fuel. They're into the lane and might trigger a flood of pit stops, you might wonder, with 8 minutes left to go. So these drivers are only coming down for what, 5-6 laps worth of fuel?
Well, Fernando Jaquez is putting a lot more than that in the tank. I don't know what's going on back there, but Diego Ere, that's a normal stop, 5.8 seconds. I have to imagine that Jaquez either miscalculated the fuel or didn't click the right amount of fuel and just put too much in, but that's going to be heartbreaking for him. 8 extra seconds that he really didn't need in the box.
It's a frustration there, but potentially we'll have to wait and see if everyone else is going to be able to come in, rather go the race distance without coming in, or if a one-stop splash and dash is going to be required. I mean, I haven't fought at the front, let's be real. Trepanier, Levesque, Malagon, Puctel. A top 4 hasn't changed since the opening lap of the race, Joey.
No, it's a French train. And I don't even know if there is a train here. I tried to do some research about the town of Ledenon, and the Wikipedia article for it is one sentence.
Interesting.
Ledenon is a commune in the Gard department of southern France. Nothing else. No other information.
It's how you know that it's maybe.
I think the racetrack is the only thing there.
Yes,
although
that's what I was
they
gonna
are
say.
up 22.1% population gain since 1962. Ledenon's coming back, guys.
It's all because of the racetrack. I mean, I half joke, but it was built in, what, 1970 or so. So I'm sure in its own little way, it's a driving force of economic activity to the region, and surely quite important in its own way. Tavares and Carnes going to be the next two to come down to the lane, followed in by the purple people eating machine of Ted Lowendick. But I don't think any of them have been fuel saving as precociously and as intently and focused as these drivers up towards the front have been. And you correctly said it earlier as well, Joey. The further back in line you are, traditionally, the easier it is for you to save some fuel.
Levesque at the head of the train right now has actually been a little bit faster than Trepanier, so that makes me wonder if he's been able to save a little bit of extra fuel to maybe push that little bit more to keep putting the pressure on and maybe actually think about going for a pass. Because as they cross the line this time, it's going to be 4 laps to go. If you haven't come in already, you're not coming into the end of this race, I don't think. So if Levesque wants to make the move, he's going to have to do it on track and hope that he saved enough fuel to put one final attack on.
Just watching through turn 3, the final part of the triple gauche. Andrew Caron again very, very close to picking up what would be a third slowdown of the race, and that would be uber frustrating to him. If you've got within 3 or 4 laps, Joey, I've got to imagine that they've been focusing on the nose stop, because it seems a little bit counterintuitive. If you know you can't make it on fuel, to have just run on strategy with everyone else doing the same thing as them, running the same pace as them, and now finally we're starting to see the intensity rise as Levesque gets a little bit closer to your race leader.
Yeah, look at how slow Trepanier was coming down the hill. I think that's because he's saving some extra fuel. He's in danger of making it to the end of this race, so he's had to lift off a little bit earlier and save some fuel in some inconvenient places. He's also a little bit offline there, off the rhythm through the final sector. This is going to open the door for Guillaume Levesque to potentially look not to the inside into the final corner. That's going to be too tough of an overtaking opportunity. But if there is another mistake like that, if there is another early lift from Trepanier and the door opens, Levesque is going to go for it. He hasn't won this season. He wants to get his first win, but Puctel and Crisp are both in.
So they can't make it. Dominguez going to be deposited directly into this battle and actually sees the gap open up slightly to Trepanier as a result of him leaving. So Simpson's now got the fastest lap as well. I think it just goes to show that these drivers have been so focused on the times that they've not really been going quicker and quicker. Caron gets in front of Terrio. Not sure if that was slowdown related, traffic related, or maybe something else in between. But Puctel, Crisp and Boucher, all with relatively short stops, Josiah Farrow's up to 8th position as his fan club continues to go wild. Joey, I think 3 at the front. Surely you're good on fuel now to the end, and it's why increasingly we're seeing the Triple Eight challenge for the lead.
Gonna get a very exciting battle for the lead, though, because Guillaume Levesque is so much faster through the middle sector and so much faster through the final sector that we might actually have a fight for the win. Juan Malagon, don't count him out either in 3rd. This is the best race he's run in the PRL in many, many weeks. If the 2 teammates in front of him come to blows, or dare I say either of them runs out of fuel, Malagon may be there to pick up the pieces. They're going to cross the line. 3 laps to go. It is going to be 3 laps to go. They've crossed the line with 2 minutes 44 with 1 minute 19 lap times. That does mean 3 laps to go, and hopefully they've got the fuel to make it.
Simpson's in. The McLaren, the fire-breathing car that always seems to burn its fuel, is run its course. Jordan Grove says the circuit of the town of Ledenon, I guess, boasts a wonderful clock tower in the center of town. Could use that to time the cars going around the track, maybe.
You could. That would be pretty great. We should. I wish we could see it in the background and the beautiful scenery of this place, because all I see is French grass and stuff.
That's where you fly to the track on Microsoft Flight Simulator, and then you race around it on iRacing.
I would do that. I would absolutely be open to doing that. We should do that as a sort of a triathlon of sim racing. You do a sim race and you time that. You do a flight in Flight Sim and you time that, and you add them together.
I'm not sure how popular that would be for some people who don't appreciate... where are we flying from? Where was the previous race? Are we making them fly from Interlagos to France?
Yes. Brazil to France.
In real time?
There's going to be at least 5 people who would be very excited to do that.
At least. Maybe at least 1. I think that's a better way to phrase it. 2 to go. Traffic may be a factor as well. Fuel maybe not, though. Terrio's into the lane, but Trepanier, Levesque, Malagon and Carone. Fastest lap being punched in from the 27 as well. Sitting back in line, saving the most fuel. Who's got it left in the tank to get to the checkered flag?
Carone was a second faster than Vincent Trepanier's fastest lap, but also Vincent in the lead of the race ran his fastest lap with a 1:19.1. That tells me that he is comfortable, but we had to run a full extra lap that we might not have run otherwise because they crossed the line with about a 2-second margin. I don't think Vincent's comfortable here. You can see him slow off the corner, probably still trying to save every little bit of fuel he can. The most comfortable guy evidently might be Andrew Carone, and he's going to peek to the inside of Juan Malagon.
It's going to be a half look, not really going to force it, I think, on this lap. Now, my question to you is, how close are they to hitting 0 at the line, Joey?
It's not going to be possible, I don't think, because they didn't take the white flag that time around. No matter what happens, they're going to have to go one more time around.
Malagon and Carone fight side by side as we dive down into the final corner. Carone gets on through in the Mercedes. He saved enough fuel. He's waited. He's managed his resources maybe perfectly to the line. And to see the white flag at Ledenon for the first time in the GT3 Sprint Series, it's Trepanier from Levesque, Malagon down to the lane. It's 3 drivers that have done enough to potentially make a no-stop work.
That is heartbreaking for Malagon. It's going to be very happy times for Terrafino up into P4. Josiah Farrow, the chat's going to go wild. He's up into P5, but the race for the lead is on. Carone has clearly saved more fuel than his 2 teammates. He is pushing 100% right now. But he can only hope that 2 of them run out of fuel, because he's not going to be able to make 2 spots on track in 1 lap unless there is a little bit of fuel help.
Just running out of time. It's been a fun opening adventure here at Ledenon. I think that's what I would say. Didn't know what to expect coming into it. Be looking forward to seeing what more we can potentially have in the future here. Here's a look at both the onboard cameras, though, as we head up towards the final sector. Still riding on board with Carone, as Josiah Farrow now up to 4th in front of Michael Terrafino. It's Vincent Trepanier down into the final sector, though, leading the trio at the front.
And he's been pulling away. I think Vincent is better on fuel than Levesque is. Unless he runs out up the hill, he might just have this into the bag. Here he comes out of the final corner. This is all he's got to do. He's got to make the run up the hill.
We wondered if the no-stop would be possible, and the punch of the fist, I think, tells you all you need to know. Vincent Trepanier makes it work, and the defending champion wins at Circuit Ledenon to bring himself 1 step closer to a potential title defense. And it's remarkably only his 2nd win of the year, as Andrew Caron punches the fastest lap in on the very final lap of the race.
And that might put Vincent Trepanier in the championship lead after all that. He was 8 points behind Caron after last week. I don't know if he's actually going to be in the championship lead, but he's going to be there. He's going to be within a couple of points. By the time we get to next week, we might see the top 3 in the championship separated by about 2 or 3 points, and that is incredible with how much of an improvement Vincent Trepanier's made over the course of this season. He was worried when this season started that he wouldn't be able to compete with the higher level guys, and he has absolutely been able to do that. He's beaten them twice now.
It's been fun as well, I think, all things considered, and so it will be interesting to hear his perspective as well at the end of the season, to hear that journey that he's been on. Josiah Farrow fans will be going wild because he was able to make the no-stop work, 11 positions gained up into 4th, and Michael Terrafino also made the no-stop work. It wasn't a one-car wild card sort of a strategy. I think that was the way I was trying to phrase it, Joey. It was definitely something viable up and down through the field.
Yeah, it was tough stuff. Poor old Charles-Etienne Boucher and Diego Ere, by the way. I think both of them ran out of fuel on the final lap, so they've lost their top 10s for that. That's tragic for both of them. They're going to come home with 17th and 18th, but shout out to Michael Terrafino, by the way, before we see the results. P5 for him in this top-level series. He's going to be very, very happy with that.
And that's a great way to lead us into the race results themselves. It's a Porsche that leads to Mercedes in the Lease quadrant, I guess, or quartet rather, at the front. With Trepanier, Levesque, Caron, and Farrow. What a result it was for them. Terrafino as well take a bow in 5th. Malagon in 6th will be slightly frustrated to have not saved enough fuel behind those that did, while Ron Puctel, Martin Crispin, and Nani Tavares and Fernando Yaquez make up the rest of your top 10. It's 11th for Miguel Angel Fonseca after early race dramas for him. Kevin Simpson 12th, Patrick Bachelard 13th with Simon Terrio, Lance Loomis, Joseph Carnes, Charles-Etienne Boucher, and then Diego Ere all on the leading lap, while 1 lap down for the likes of Ted Lowendick, for the likes of Ray Dominguez, who makes up the final spot inside of your top 20, while just Gary Brown DNF'd on the day in his Porsche after qualifying relatively well. Fastest lap, of course, went the way of Andrew Caron as well. That was on the very final lap, as we mentioned. Let's throw things down, though, to our winner, who I'm sure is very excited to be once again talking with Joey Tebben.
I'm sure he's the most excited guy in the world. Vincent, simple question for you. How in the world did you make that fuel happen?
Very nice. In front of Guillaume Levesque and Andrew Caron, and I'm surprised to do it in front of these guys, because I know they are really strong on the safe fuel. So I'm happy with it, guys.
So how did you like this new track? Evidently the fuel mileage was a big part of it, but what were your first impressions of Ledenon?
Sorry for iRacing, but no, I don't like this track. There is too much of curve. Maybe for the slower cars. Sorry, I don't know how to say it. For the slower cars, maybe for the Mazda MX-5 or something like that. Maybe, but in GT3, it's not a track for these cars. Sorry for iRacing.
I'm sure they won't be offended. But Vincent, second win of the season, congratulations, and we'll see you with 2 more weeks to go as you fight for this championship.
Yeah, thank you to you guys, Advanced Motorsport and Advanced Racing, and all of our sponsors.
Vincent Trepanier, yet another win, Arjuna. Not the best review of Ledenon from him, but that's understandable. It was hard to pass, but he's going to be happier than anybody. Coming home with his second win of the season, and he's not just a bus driver anymore, he's a train driver.
It was good point there. It was, I think, a sentiment shared by a couple of the drivers, though, and so that's going to be interesting to see. When we next see it in the Precision Racing League, it might not be in the GT3s, it might be in one of the other open wheel machines, maybe in the Formula 4 series, where it seems quite suited to that sort of racing. But of course, a week from today, penultimate round of the championship, a trip to the land of the rising sun and to one of the longest straights, Joey, in modern motorsport.
How things are going to change coming into next week. I'm excited for Fuji. But also, I know some drivers are going to be not excited for it, because that final sector, every single off-camber corner, is going to make their lives extremely difficult. It's going to be difficult to pass through there. It's going to be difficult to keep it on the road, and it's going to be difficult to not take off the floor of your car in a sausage curb. But I hope everybody's ready for it because it's only 2 rounds to go. The championship's coming up here. We're going to have a champion in less than a month's time.
And will it be Vincent Trepanier or will it be someone else? Will the defending king be able to keep his throne, or will the crown be passed to a new head? We will find out on November the 21st, where all roads will lead to Watkins Glen. I don't know if I was as down on my first experience of Circuit Ledenon as some of the drivers were, but then to be fair, I didn't have to practice it. I didn't have to make the mistakes around it. Whatever the case may be, though, through both of the doubleheader GT3 action here on a Tuesday night, drivers have seen the other side of Ledenon, and now with just 2 races left to go this season, it's almost time, like Joey said, to crown our champion. For the entire team at RaceSpotTV, for Joey Tebben alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in a week's time from the land of the rising sun with just 2 weeks to go in 2023 Season 4.